The other thing is that because, at least in the locale where I worked in North Carolina, most day laborers are black, there is a certain amount of solidarity on that basis too. When we were driving the cars at the auction barn, there was a lady driving. She skidded into a fence. She said, and I saw it happen, could have been true. She said she hit the brake and the gravel was too thick or something and that made her skid. As far as I'm concerned, that was good enough. But the foreman, who was white, said, no, you hit the gas when you were trying to hit the brakes. Now, we were all driving cars we'd never been in before. That could have happened as well. And he starts into her, and it's clear that he's going to fire her. And about a minute later, he's surrounded by 10 day laborers, all of whom is black but one. That foreman discovered mercy right there on the spot. And the lady was not fired. And I asked a couple of my co-workers, I said, what do you think happened? And they said, well, the foreman's making up that stuff. And I said, what if he ain't making it up? And they said, everybody needs a job. They understood that the position of those women, most of whom were single mothers, was desperate. And they didn't care if you were old like me and white like me, or if you were black and female. They didn't care. They understood everybody needs a job. I only wish our educated people were so wise as they were. Should watch my watch. How long have I been talking? I'll tell you a story about our hero. Day labor halls are like anywhere else. People have different personalities. We had a guy in our hall, and in fact, that's why I chose the hall. I'd heard about him before I went there. My first summer, he wasn't there. He was in jail. But when he came back, he stood, this was a guy who stood 6'3" to 6'5", and was built. I'm looking for something heavy. This I might be able to carry by myself. He could grab it under one arm. And he called his specialty unloading moving vans, where you got chest of drawers and couches and stuff, which he could handle better than anybody. And he liked moving vans because it doesn't take usually more than 4 or 5 hours to unload one. And usually the people in the house that you're unloading at, they give you a tip, 20 bucks or better. So it paid better, less hours, it paid better than most other work. Can't blame him for declaring himself a specialist on those grounds. And I want to warn you, if any of y'all ever move, I don't know about, I'm not so sure about moving away, but moving in, you're going to have a van show up with 5 or 6 workers who have T-shirts with the name of the moving company on them. They gave them those T-shirts after they showed up from the day labor hall. And we were 2 or 3 times dressed up as regular employees, right? And we got to keep the T-shirts. Anyway, this guy, his name was Real Deal. He had been at the labor hall 11 years, longer than any of the managers. When he came in the morning, he'd be shaking hands with everybody, like he was a U.S. Senator come to visit us. And then he'd go up to sign in, and he'd sign in, and he'd say, do the math. And I don't know why he said that, but everybody would say, do the math. And then he'd sit down in a corner, and there was a certain crowd of guys who would start moving their chairs to be near him. And they'd tell tall tales and talk about drinking bouts and just generally carrying on, having a good time. And I think we all looked to him for leadership. Partly because he was big and able and experienced, and partly because you're dealing with a male blue-collar crowd largely, partly because he could outdrink anybody. We didn't drink on the job. I won't tell you that while we were riding out to the job, people didn't drink. And between the job and the day labor hall to get paid at the end of the day, there's only 2 or 3 of us who didn't drink. I was one of them. I don't drink at all. But alcohol's pretty common, so are cigarettes. And one day we were out on spreading asphalt. Asphalt trucks are heated. When the asphalt is put into them, it's hot, and they are heated as they drive. Because if the asphalt gets cold, it clumps up. You can't spread it out. It lumps up. We'd been doing this, tearing up pavement and putting down asphalt all day. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, well, the rain starts falling. Then a cold wind starts blowing. And the asphalt starts lumping up on us. We're having trouble spreading it. So Real Deal tells the foreman of the company we're working for, we can't keep this up. It gets too cold. And the foreman starts arguing that we can. And it turns out we had one guy on the crew who had worked asphalt for like 8 years. And he starts explaining the techniques of the technical stuff about why we can't. This asphalt's supposed to be so many degrees. I know, I've worked with it. It's only so many degrees. Don't BS me. Before I went to prison, I worked 8 years on, right? And so Real Deal said, well, we can't do it, we're going home. And the foreman says, oh no, there's still 2 trucks coming. And the rain's getting heavier. And Real Deal says, I told you we're not doing it. And he walks over in the grass and lays down this way. Lays down on his back and spreads his legs. And the rest of us look at him. We put down our tools. And the foreman gets on his little telephone and talks to another one of them. And there's a series of conferences, and they come over 5 or 6 minutes later and they say, okay, you can go home, we'll sign the tickets. So he led us in what you'd call a job action, I guess. But he didn't always do that when we were in that situation, and I never figured out why. We had a couple of weeks later, we were on a job where they didn't give us water. And a worker went to him and he said, why don't you bring us some water? Bring us a cooler of water. And the boss man said, where would I get it? The worker said, from Lowe's. And enough of us were circling around that the boss did go get a cooler and put it out. We all go over to drink out of it, and there was no ice in it. It was 90 degrees out there. And so the worker said, somebody, you ought to put ice in it. Boss man whips out his cell phone, calls the labor hall. Such and such worker has given me lip. Passes the phone to the worker. The labor hall says, he wants you fired, and we can't come get you to 3 o'clock. So if you don't give in, you're going to be sitting until 3 o'clock and not making any money. Well, I thought this was time for us to throw down our tools again. But I was not the leader. Real Deal was. Nobody would have followed me.